Hi, I'm Phyllis from southernfrugal.com. Today I'm going to make some baklava, and baklava is a pastry that's made with nuts and a real thin phyllo dough, or phyllo, however you want to say it. Here's the one I get, and I got this at Walmart. Now it comes with 2 packs of 20 sheets each, and what it is just a very thin wheat. It's not really a dough, it's just like leaves. It's just super thin. Now if you've ever been to a Greek restaurant and got dessert, you probably got baklava, and it's made with the very thin layers of sheets of dough. Phyllo. I call it Phyllo. Anyway, however you want to say it. Alright, first thing we need to do is make our filling. And our filling, I'm going to use walnuts. Now, if you were in Iran, you would use just plain almonds, ground all up. If you were in Russia, I'm not sure what you would use, but you would use nuts, okay? So any kind of combination you want. Now, I've made it with all pecans, which would be southern baklava, right? So anyway, but today we're going to use just regular English walnuts, and the spices that are going to go into the filling are going to be half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and 2 heaping teaspoons of cardamom. Now you can get this, I'm not sure if you can find it at Walmart, but you can certainly find it in like Phyllo and other grocery stores. And we're also going to use just 3 tablespoons of sugar, because we're going to end up making a syrup that's going to go on the top of this after it's done. So before we start working with our dough, we want to make our filling. Now, whichever nut you use, it must be all ground up. I'm going to go ahead and put my spices in. That's 2 heaping teaspoons of cardamom, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a half a teaspoon of nutmeg. Now, these are the spices I like in it. You can use all kinds of combinations, whatever you like. I love the cardamom because it gives it a lemony taste, just slightly, but it's a lemony taste. And I always like to say this, cardamom is what they call the queen of spices because it's so mellow. Alright, so we're going to dump that in. Now I'm going to grind these all up almost just to a flour. It's going to be ground up so much. So I'm going to go ahead and grind it up, and we'll be back. Alright, I forgot to put my sugar in the food processor. So the 3 tablespoons of sugar, I'm just mixing it in while I've got the bowl here. Just mix it all in. Alright, now we are ready to put our dough in the dish that we're going to bake this in. Now, the phyllo dough is 9 inches by 14 inches. I think it's 9. It might have been 8. Let me look. Yeah, it's 9. Now, my Pyrex dish is just a little smaller than that, but I'm going to just make do with this because I don't have a pan the exact right size, but you know, whatever you need to do to, you know, fit it into the pan is alright. Alright, so I've got this filling mixed up. That's what it looks like. And we're going to set this aside now. Alright, now we're ready. Alright, the dough will come frozen, and what you need to do, or what I do, is thaw it out in the refrigerator. Then you want to take it out of the refrigerator when you're ready to use it and let it sort of get to room temperature. Now, this dough will dry out really fast. So this is the way I do it. I've got my little pie rolling out little sheet here, and I've got a just slightly damp paper towel that I'm going to put on the bottom. And I'm going to just unroll this. Now it's very, very delicate. You want to save this plastic because you want to put that over your sheets. Now, when I started making this baklava, I'm trying to think, I think it was in probably the 60s. The phyllo dough came in a much bigger size, and so you could make it in a much bigger pan. But now they've gotten smart and started making it to fit roughly a 8 by 14 inch pan. Excuse me. Alright, so now I'm going to put the plastic over it, and then I'm also going to put a just slightly damp dish towel over the top of the plastic, because you'll be taking out the sheets one at a time. Let me move this out of the way. One at a time. Now, I've also got melted 1 cup of butter, and I just put the little wrapper that the butter comes in over top of the bowl and melt it in the microwave. Alright, so 1 cup of butter melted. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is, with a brush, we're going to butter the bottom of our pan that we're going to be laying the dough in, 1 sheet at a time. And I go ahead and just butter up the sides too. Now, I'm sure I don't have to tell you all this, but when you're using one of these little brushes, you have to always watch and make sure none of those little bristles don't come out and, you know, what you're cooking. Alright, so we're ready. Alright, so I'm going to pull my towel and my sheet back, and I want 1 little leaf. There it is. See how thin it is? I'm going to position that in my pan that I've already buttered. Now mine goes up the side a little bit because the pan is a little too small, but it still works. So you want to just butter this little leaf. Try to kind of brush any air bubbles out of it if you can as you're putting the butter on. Now every layer will need to be buttered. Getting those little air bubbles out as much as I can. There we go. Alright, and what I do, because it's a little bit too big for this, my particular pan, I just kind of push it down with the brush. Alright, so now we're ready for our next layer. Same thing again, just 1. Position it right down there. If you don't get it in exactly right, it really doesn't matter that much. Now I'm going to brush it again. And you don't have to just totally, saturate it. You can just kind of lightly go over it. Alright, ready for our next one. And again, you want to just pick up 1 sheet at a time. And if it tears, just don't even worry, because no one's going to see it. And if you don't get it positioned exactly right, don't worry about that either, because all of it's going to be covered. Alright, so just lightly brush it with butter. We used to get the baklava when they had the Greek festival in downtown Columbia. And I had a little girl I worked with that would go down, because she took her lunch at 12 o'clock and I went to lunch at 1. And she would run down there and get us all these wonderful pastries. I think the Greeks do that to raise money. And of course they know that everybody loves their pastries. So now putting the cardamom in it makes it not quite Greek and more Persian, really. Alright, so we're going to keep on till I've got 10 layers in here, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what we do then. Okay, I have got 10 layers of the dough in now, and it's all got butter in between each layer. Now I'm going to use 1/2 of my nut mixture. Right on top of that dough. You want to spread it out as even as you can get it. Right up to the edges. Alright, that looks good enough. Now I'm going to just take my brush and dip it in some of the butter and just drizzle it over these nuts and spice mixture. Drizzle it over is all you need, just a little bit. Okay, now we're ready for our next 10 layers. I'm going to do the same thing. Put your crust in. You might have to hold it because of the nut mixture is kind of uneven in there. So I'm going to just hold it with your fingers a little bit maybe. And this is going to make a very crunchy little crust on top, in the middle, and on the bottom. Alright, so there's one. Just the same thing like you did for the bottom crust. And every little speck of this dough doesn't have to be covered with butter, but you need to get it, covered as much as you can. Because that's what's going to make your crust real flaky. Alright, we're just going to keep going. If it doesn't work out exactly right, just crunch it down. Pull it down a little bit. Because none of this is really going to show. So what you're after really is that just really crunchy, buttery dough. Again, I just use my little pastry brush to kind of even it out all around the edges. Let's do one more here, and then I will cut the camera off and finish up the layers and show you what the next layer looks like. It's a little time consuming, but really putting out this dough into the pan is probably the hardest part. I mean, the rest of it is just grinding up nuts. That's really all there is to it. Alright, and we're going to be back when I get this whole crust layer here done and we're ready for the next nut layer. Okay, we have got the final 10 layers on there. I'm going to put the rest of the nuts on now. This is the other half of the nuts. Sometimes I find it just as easy to spread this with my fingers. Try to get it even. And all the way up to the corners. Spices smell really good. Really good. Alright. And mash that down. Alright. Now we're going to drizzle it with butter also. And just use your little paintbrush and dribble drops in. Now I'm going to open up my second pack of the dough, and I'm going to put 10 more layers on, and we'll be back. Alright, we are back. I've gotten my other pack of the dough out from the wrapper, and I've just decided to go ahead and use all 20 of these little leaves on the top of this. just because I like it that well. Normally you wouldn't put but 10, but I'm going to go ahead and use 20. I think I've got enough butter to do that. So I need to kind of hold it. Just get that butter kind of painted on there. Again, this is what makes all the little crunchy layers. Now I'll have to tell you that when I first knew about baklava, that was from a couple of girls that I worked with when I was very young, and they were both from Greece, and I just loved it. And they said their mothers made the dough from scratch. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get that recipe and I'm going to do that. And I did, and that's the hardest work I've ever done. You have to stretch this dough over a table, preferably something like a little card table, and you hold your hands like this, or you could do it like that, but you need to make sure your fingernails, and you just keep stretching it. And what it is of course the gluten in the wheat flour is what stretches, and you just keep stretching it. When you finally get it, really like paper thin, just like this is, then you're ready to cut it. And it was pretty good, but I couldn't really tell the difference in what you buy in the store and what I made. And what you buy in the store is just a whole bunch easier. I'm sure they have machines that do this, because I can't imagine ladies or workers stretching it all by hand. But anyway, so I never made it by hand but the one time. And after I got through, I said, I will never be doing that again. And it was on a Saturday, and that was the only day I really had to, clean my house and do my wash and everything, and it took me like all afternoon just to get the dough ready. Now if one splits, it doesn't matter at all. You can just fix it right up together. Alright, I gotta go find out what's going on in there. My dogs are growling. I'll be back. I'm gonna go ahead and put the 20 layers right on top. Alright, I have completed putting on all my layers, and now we need to cut this, and I'm gonna cut it not all the way through to the bottom, but about halfway through. And I'm using a straight edge razor because that's the sharpest thing I have. I have never found a knife that was ever sharp enough to do a good job. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it right in half, only going down halfway. Don't go all the way to the bottom, because you can do that later. Alright, and then I'm going to cut those in half. It goes much, much easier with a razor blade, straight edge razor blade. I'm going to cut this one down, so I've got it in 4 different sections. Now I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to start cutting it at angles. Start right there. Alright, I gotta figure this out. My angles aren't quite right. Hold on, I'll be back. Alright, I got it figured out. I made my sections too big. If you're Greek, I know you're probably laughing right now, okay? Alright, so I'm just gonna cut it like this. And again, you'll have to kind of hold it when you cut it. But it goes much, much better with a razor blade. So mine is going to be in triangles rather than in diamonds. And they don't have to be perfect. Turn that around now. Again, you want to go halfway down. Just don't go all the way to the bottom because we're going to do that later. This is the kind of razor blade you get in the paint store or in the paint department at Walmart when you want to scrape windows that have got paint on them. That's the type of razor blade this is. All right. And you can also just cut these in squares. That works fine too. Alright, we've got it all cut through now. And now we're going to bake this in the oven, 350 degrees. And I like to check mine after 30 minutes and then let it go another 15 minutes and check it because you don't want to burn it on the bottom, but you want it browned on top. Some people like theirs just lightly brown. I prefer mine a little more brown than that. So 350 degrees, 45 minutes, really look at it, and should cook no more than an hour. Alright, we'll be back when this is done. Okay, my baklava has been cooking for a little while, and we're now ready to fix the syrup that's going to go on it. You need 1 cup of sugar. That's just plain white sugar. One cup of water. And 1/2 lemon. Now what I do is go ahead and squeeze out the lemon juice and strain it because I don't want any seeds in there. Just make sure I don't have any seeds. Now you're going to go ahead and just put the whole lemon right down in the water. Give this a little stir. I'm going to have this on medium heat, and I'm going to cook this for about probably maybe 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and just cut my lemon in half. Because what you want is the lemon oil that's going to come out of that lemon rind. Alright, so you really don't have to, that was my ice maker, sorry. You really don't have to stir this or anything other than just a little bit. Just put it on medium heat and just leave it here for like 15 minutes and it'll be ready. Alright, we'll be back when that baklava is good and browned. Alright, our baklava has completed cooking, and what I'm going to do now is put the syrup on it. Cooked it down a little bit. You only really have to cook this about 15 minutes. I'm going to take those 2 little pieces of lemon out. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of honey. And that's to prevent this from ever getting sugary, because the sauce is hot and the baklava is hot, and we're going to pour this right over the top of it. And I think that's about all I've got in there is 2 tablespoons. Set that down a minute. Alright, that's about 2 tablespoons. And we're just going to stir that up. Now my syrup is pretty hot. So I'm just going to stir that around. Turn my burner off. Alright, we're ready to pour it over this baklava now. You want to just pour it gently, and if some of the little tops of the baklava float off, you can just put them back in place. It's going to be sizzling. You want to make sure you just pour all the sauce over it. It's actually bubbling up now. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Alright, now what we want to do is, the pan's very hot, so I'm going to have to hold it. Now you want to finish cutting in between all these little triangles. Alright, now if you like your baklava kind of really super moist, then at this point you'd really kind of want to put some tin foil over the top of it. But I like mine really, really crispy, these layers. So you want to just leave the top off of it and let it sit for a couple of hours, and it'll soak up all that juice, and then it will also come out very easily. I'm going to see if I can get one out now to show you what it looks like. It'll be very hard because it's super, super hot. I'm going to see if I can get this one right here out. And what I'm doing is cutting through that bottom layer. Let's see if I can get that out. Very hard. And it's going to be very hot. I'm going to use a spoon. Oh, it came out. It's really better if you let it cool. Oh, burnt my finger on it. Oh. All right, let me get it back. Oh. Okay. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's not very good light, but anyway, there it is. You can see all the layers. This layer is going to be real crunchy. That bottom layer is going to be crunchy, and the nuts are in between. All right, we will see you next time. This was baklava, and it was my version.